Picture a city so obsessed with staying clean, it doesn't just throw away garbage, it throws away people too.
Down below that floating city is a place they call the Pit. A bottomless dumping ground, crawling with monsters made out of everything the rich didn't want to look at anymore. No sunlight down there, no mercy either.
Somewhere up in that clean, perfect city, a boy just watched his father die on the floor in front of him. And in about 5 minutes, they're going to blame him for it, because in a world built entirely on appearances, it's always easier to throw away the kid nobody wanted in the first place.
Welcome to GACHIAKU. 24 episodes, one furious teenager, and an entire underworld nobody topside ever bothered to imagine. It's a story about what happens to the things, and the people, that get called garbage, and what happens when one of them decides to fight back. Let's throw him away. Rudo's an outcast, even by slum standards. His birth father was a killer, his neighborhood treats him like trash before he's even opened his mouth, and the only thing that keeps him sane is scavenging what the wealthy spherites throw out and giving it a second life. To him, nothing's really garbage, it just hasn't found the right hands yet. The only two people who don't look at him like something to step over are his adoptive father, Rudo, a quiet, patient man who raised him out of nothing but kindness, and Chihuahuards, the girl Rudo's been hopelessly in love with since he can remember. One good day, Chihuahua finally, nervously admits she feels the same way, turns into the single worst night of Rudo's life. He comes home practically floating and finds Rudo bleeding out on the floor, a masked figure fleeing into the dark with a strange, ancient-looking book clutched under one arm. Rudo's last words to him aren't a scream or a plea for help. They're a request. Fix this broken world, Rudo. Somehow. Some way. The world's answer to that is to arrest Rudo for the murder. No trial that actually matters. No one willing to believe the slum kid over the silence of a dead man. He's sentenced by the very people he used to try to help and marched to the edge of the city for the oldest punishment they've got. Thrown straight off the edge, down into the endless pit below where nobody who falls is ever expected to come back. Somehow, impossibly, Rudo survives the fall. And what's waiting for him down here isn't just filth and rot. Down here, trash moves. Trash hunts. Trash has teeth, claws, and apparently a real appetite for freshly fallen slum kids. In the middle of getting his face nearly torn off by something that used to be a refrigerator, Rudo discovers something new stirring inside himself. The power of a giver. Someone able to reach into junk and pull out a living weapon. And that's exactly the moment the cleaners show up. Warriors who specialize in putting these trash beasts down for good. Front and center is Engine, loud, unpredictable, immediately larger than life, and the very first person in this entire nightmare who looks at Rudo and sees potential instead of trash. Engine offers Rudo a spot on his crew, Team Akuta, but it's not a gift, it's a test. Rudo's going to have to prove right here, right now, that he can survive somewhere that doesn't care one bit about his tragic backstory. The ground doesn't run on sympathy. It runs on who's still breathing at the end of the day. For the first time since Rudo died, Rudo starts to realize that swearing revenge is the easy part. Actually earning the strength to pull it off is a completely different fight. Rudo gets his first real look inside. An actual headquarters, actual ranks, actual purpose buried down here under all the garbage the sphere's been dumping for who knows how long. That's also where he first crosses paths with Jabra Wonger, a name that turns out to be exactly as unhinged as the person attached to it, dangerous in a way that feels almost gleeful. Slowly it dawns on Rudo. This isn't just a gang of scavengers hiding from monsters. It's a whole functioning world underneath the one that threw him away like he was nothing. Team Akuta runs headlong into the Raiders, a rival faction that plays by a much bloodier, much less negotiable set of rules than the cleaners do.
Down here, it turns out us versus them was never simple. Every faction's got its own code, its own grudges, its own reasons for clawing over the same scraps of territory. Rudo watches the first real cracks form in his assumption that the cleaners are just the obvious good guys in all this. Rudo throws himself into training, determined to actually master his vital instrument instead of flailing his way through every fight. Zanka ends up hammering the real lesson into him. It was never about how many hits you land. It's about landing the one that actually counts. Bit by bit, painfully, Rudo starts to feel less like a lost kid who fell into a nightmare and more like someone who might actually belong down here. Jabberwonger comes back swinging, literally injecting himself with his own claws to go fully unconscious and immune to pain, overwhelming Rudo before he can even react properly. That's when Zanka reappears, still half paralyzed from an earlier poison hit, and pulls off one of the most unhinged strategies of the fight, letting Jabber land a hit on him on purpose, because his own weapon reacts to hostility, using the attack itself to close the distance and let Rudo land the real blow. Back and forth it goes, Rudo and Zanka trading impossible timing against a man who genuinely seems to enjoy getting hurt. Jabber finally goes down, only to inject himself again, numb the pain completely, and try to escape with an unconscious Rudo slung over his shoulder like a sack of garbage. He doesn't get far. Rio slices clean through the building he's standing in. An umbrella slams into him out of nowhere. An engine arrives with the rest of the cleaners right on cue, looking at the wreckage and remarking that the scene could use some serious cleaning. With the dust literally still settling, Rudo officially becomes a cleaner, meets the actual leader of the organization, gets handed his own uniform, and for the first time in this entire ordeal, feels like he has a place to stand. Injin and Rio take him around headquarters, introducing him to faces he'll be seeing a lot more of. It's quiet, it's almost nice, but the episode doesn't end soft. Injin and Zanka sit him down and lay out something bigger. Real insight into what being a giver actually means, and an offer. Help him find a way back up to the sphere. Help him get his revenge. And just as things start to feel settled, a brief, unsettling glimpse of the person actually pulling Jabber's strings. The team ventures into a strange, vibrant pocket of the pit, completely covered in graffiti. Actual art, somehow, thriving in the middle of all this rot and violence, like someone down here refused to stop creating, even after everything. Buried under the paint are pieces of the pit's real history, proof that this hellscape wasn't always exactly the nightmare it is now, and that someone, once, tried to make something beautiful out of it. The crew pushes out into Penta, a brutal, sun-scorched wasteland that couldn't be more different from the trash-heap terrain they've gotten used to. No cover, no shade, no easy places to hide when something decides you're worth hunting. Strength alone doesn't guarantee survival out here. The dangers are subtler, sneakier, buried under sand instead of garbage. And the team has to adapt fast, or get left behind by a landscape that doesn't care how tough you think you are. Even the usual dynamic between the team shifts under the heat. Old habits and easy jokes start fraying at the edges when everyone's exhausted, dehydrated, and running on nerves. But Rudo pushes forward anyway, because turning back was never really an option for him in the first place. Deep in the middle of nowhere, the team stumbles onto a woman named Amo, living completely alone with an unsettling, almost too perfect amount of hospitality. Warm meals, clean water, a bed to actually sleep in. After everything the team's been through, it almost feels too good to question. Something about her kindness doesn't sit right. It's the kind of warmth that feels rehearsed, like she's been waiting a very long time for someone, anyone, to walk through her door, and like she might not be entirely ready to let them walk back out of it. Dark truths start surfacing about a curse tied directly to the powers the cleaners rely on to survive down here. Even Rudo's own body seems to be hiding something nobody's fully explained to him yet. something that flares up at exactly the wrong moments. The line between giver and monster, it turns out, might not be as clean as everyone's been pretending. And the deeper the team digs into Amo's world, the more that line starts to blur for all of them, not just Rudo. Amo finally opens up. The real story of how she ended up alone in that tower, and the mysterious angels who once came to visit her, promising things they never delivered. For a while, she says, she actually believed someone was coming back for her. It's a story about isolation and false hope dressed up as hospitality. And it lands on Rudo harder than he expects. Because underneath everything, it's the exact same story he's been living. Someone he trusted, gone. A promise that never got kept. Fresh off the Pantah dessert, Naoto and the cleaners make it home to find new threats already waiting for them. The world hasn't paused just because they went missing for a few days. Ryo finally sits everyone down and actually breaks down the different types of givers that exist. And Rudo realizes with a start that power down here is nowhere near as uniform as he'd assumed. There isn't just one way to be dangerous. Elsewhere, a cleaner named Samiu is caught quietly negotiating with a group everyone started calling the Attackers. And Ludo can't shake a fragmented memory, something half-glimpsed at a place people keep calling the Border, a name that means nothing to him yet, and everything to everyone around him. Every thread in this world is starting to braid together into something much bigger than random monster fights in a trash heap. Raud's starting to understand. The pit isn't just where the sphere throws its garbage. It's where the sphere hides its secrets, too. Without warning, the cleaners are taken by the raiders to an unknown location and have to fight just to get out alive. It's chaotic, desperate, nobody fully in control. The kind of fight that doesn't leave room to think, only react. In the middle of it, Zodel, a raider with far more nuance than his reputation lets on, pulls Rudo aside and makes him a genuine offer. Not a threat, not a trap as far as Rudo can tell, an actual proposal. And it forces Rudo to sit with a question he's been avoiding. Is cleaners good, raiders bad, actually true? Or just the story he needed to believe to make any of this simple? Back at base, Bundes interrogates a raider subgroup known as the Santas, digging for answers about the much bigger picture starting to take shape around Team Akuta and everything they've stumbled into. Meanwhile, Zenka is struggling hard to keep pace with the powered-up Jabberwonger, because it turns out Jabber's been holding back this entire time. He reveals he's got 3 separate toxins loaded onto his claws, and he uses every single one on Zenka, stabbing him again and again and again. No restraint left in him at all. The fight ends with Zenka collapsed on the ground, motionless, his vital instrument lying just out of reach where he can't even crawl to it. Whether he makes it through the night is left hanging in the air, unanswered. The kind of silence that says the show isn't playing it safe anymore. There's a quieter turn after that. One character looks back on a completely ordinary beginning, tracing the slow, unremarkable road that eventually dragged them into this brutal, violent world. Nobody down here started out as a fighter. Circumstance built every single one of them, one loss at a time. And it reframes a lot of what's already happened. Every hardened, dangerous face in this story used to just be a person before the world got its hands on them. The war between raiders and cleaners boils all the way over as Rio's fight against Noorday reaches a genuinely brutal peak. Rio taking hit after hit, coughing up blood, refusing to stay down even when every part of her clearly wants to. In the middle of the violence, her mind drifts somewhere else entirely. Back to Amo. To a memory of Rudo reaching a hand out towards someone who needed it. A flicker of warmth breaking through all this blood and noise, like a reminder of exactly what they're all fighting to protect.
Elsewhere, Zodel examines a new pair of vital instrument boots and drops a genuinely massive detail. They're part of something called the Watchman series, the exact same category of relic as his own coat.
and as the gloves Ludo's been wearing this entire time without a second thought. And somewhere out there, someone's actively trying to make more of them. The Watchman. The real hidden system quietly holding the line between the pristine sphere above and the wasteland below finally gets dragged out into the light. Rudo's gloves, Zodal's coat, the boots from before, all of it belongs to the same scattered, deliberately hidden set of relics, spread out like someone wanted to make sure no one piece could ever tell the whole story. The structure that got Rudo thrown down here in the first place finally has a name, and pieces of it have apparently been sitting on his own hands this entire time, without him ever knowing what he was really wearing. New ranks, new responsibilities. As the larger conflict tightens its grip on everyone, loyalties inside the cleaners themselves get tested in ways no amount of training ever prepared anyone for. Not everyone responds to that kind of pressure the same way, and the cracks that start forming here matter a lot more than they look like in the moment. The cleaners scramble to stop what's essentially a runaway train of a crisis, something moving faster than anyone can outplan. Standing directly in their way is Bondus, forcing a confrontation nobody has time for, and nobody can afford to lose. Every single second in this stretch costs something real. There's no clean way through it, no move that doesn't leave a mark. And then, finally, the show says out loud what it's been quietly building toward all season. Real strength was never about who hits the hardest. It's about who you're willing to stand in front of when it matters. By the end of one brutal fight, a young cleaner, barely still standing, turns to Gris, calls him Big Brother, and collapses from sheer exhaustion right there. A small, quiet moment that somehow says more about found family than every fight scene that came before it combined. In the wake of it all, the cleaners take stock of exactly what they've lost. Zanka, still recovering from the vicious hit he took from Jabber, gets handed news nobody saw coming. News that reframes everything about what's coming next for the whole team. And for Runo, everything he's learned and lost and clawed his way through up to this point finally comes to a head. His biggest test yet, and not just as a fighter, but as someone deciding, deliberately, for the first time, who he actually wants to be. He comes out the other side different, stronger, still angry, but for the first time since Regdo died, that anger's pointed somewhere real. After everything, the kids of Team Akuta finally get something almost normal. A trip out to Canvas Town. A little breathing room. A little bit of just being kids for one single afternoon. Laughing about nothing. Wasting time on purpose. The kind of ordinary day none of them have had since long before they fell into the pit. Back at base, though, Corvus is dealing with some very unwanted company. Something much bigger is closing in on all of them, even while the rest of the team gets this one last quiet afternoon to pretend it isn't. And just like that, the season detonates every single thread it spent 24 episodes quietly weaving together, leaving Rudo and the rest of Team Aqua staring down a fight in Season 2 that makes absolutely everything before it look like a warm-up. And that's Season 1 of GACHIAKUTA, beat for beat. One framed kid, one bottomless trash pit full of monsters, and a found family clawing its way towards something better than the world that threw them all away. If Season 2 doesn't drop soon, we riot. Subscribe so you don't miss it.